All right, assholes. Some of you are going to get your dream come true, and I'm actually going to read one of my own articles because the guy I normally have do this is, frankly, a psychological millennial mess. Is the HR Ditz finally extinct? Written June 22nd, 2017 on LinkedIn. 5 years ago, I found myself sitting in a small cube in a small Wyoming bank in a small Wyoming town nestled within the mountains. Though it may sound picturesque, that's about all it was, since this job was no different than any other job any other American has ever held. Incompetent bosses, constantly changing job duties, divisions hemorrhaging money. I like to say this was just another case of my boss is a total jerk man, but it wasn't. It was an all too common reality corporate America doesn't like to admit to. Employers are no smarter nor better than the idiots they hire. But this time my stint with this particular employer would be different. For my goal wasn't to become vice president of mortgage lending or chief financial officer. It was to take my money and run. I only needed about $30,000 to pay down my mortgage to the point a bank back home would refinance my rental property at a much lower rate, allowing me to live off of the rental income, ne'er having to do a job ever again, nor answer to some dipshit gray-haired boss. At the day I had put in a full year, which allowed me to keep 100% of my hiring bonus, I tendered my resignation and got the hell out of Dodge. But something dawned on me as I approached my 5th year of bosslessness. While I had to interview with the president, the vice president, the CEO, the vice president of commercial lending, and some bankers from my last job, I didn't have one conversation, not one word with the classic HR Ditz. Sure, there was an HR lady in the office in charge of benefits and compensation, as well as employment law. But where was the uneducated, math-impaired, 25-year-old child human resources Ditz who was supposed to ask me where I saw myself in 5 years and what's my favorite color and why? It soon dawned on me that I hadn't seen an HR Ditz in quite a while. The job before my Wyoming one, I spoke directly to the VP of Commercial Lending and a lending committee. The job before that one was just the branch president, and the job before that I was interviewed by the CEO and the vice president of lending, not an HR Ditz. If I do the math right, I might be celebrating 5 years without a boss, but I'm coming up on a decade of not having to tolerate an HR Ditz. This behooves the question, where did she go? What happened to her? What happened to the HR Ditz? And the answer is not so simple. If you search it, there are scores of articles, most from reputable periodicals, either calling for or highlighting the elimination of the HR department. This is in part due to the ever-evolving business culture, in part to the advent of HR software that replaces their human counterparts, and in part to the desire to trim fat from managerial overhead. There certainly seems to be a trend, but there's no solid numbers or data to back it up. Still, this doesn't bode well for Madison and her recently acquired Masters in Human Resources Management if companies are culling entire HR departments, replacing them by third-party software. There's also the trend to simply rebrand HR as something more politically correct and palatable to today's wimpy, pansified, politically correct, spineless, touchy-feely sheep culture. The favorite today is Chief People Officer, though variants of this exist. Google has a Chief People and Culture Officer. Airbnb has a Global Head of Employee Experience. But whatever vomit-inducing euphemisms they come up with, its primary purpose is virtue signaling. It's marketing. It's propaganda. Is to demonstrate to lesser intelligent people how magnanimous and caring the corporation is so they buy their stuff. Regardless, this ulterior motive does not bode well for the 24-year-old tell me your strengths and weaknesses HR generalist, as the focus of HR is now PR, not screening for candidates. And then there's what I'm forced to suspect in absence of conclusive data and proof otherwise. Corporate America is simply waking the fuck up. Over 20 years ago, when I was forced to take an HR class for a completely unrelated degree, I wanted to know just how effective HR was at screening for candidates. I also wanted to know because when interviewing for internships, I was shocked to see clueless HR Ditz after clueless HR Ditz ask me questions about feelings and emotions and not finance, accounting, modeling, or economics. And to this day, I remember the number very clearly, 0.14. 0.14 was the correlation coefficient between HR interview techniques and future employee performance. It was pulled from a Mercer study long ago, but sadly when I try to find newer research and data, it doesn't seem to exist. Still, it doesn't take a statistician or a full-blown academic study to know that having Tiffany, the 24-year-old math-impaired child with her play school HR degree, interviewing Sam, the 50-year-old chemical engineer MIT graduate with 30 years experience, is about the worst way to screen for talent, especially with those craptastic classical HR questions. Have you ever been in a situation where you and your boss disagreed, and how did you resolve it? What is your greatest weakness? If you could be an animal, which one would it be and why? Tee-hee, I have an HR degree. I are smart and professional. Even corporate America, dumb, lethargic, and incompetent as it is, slowly but surely does figure things out. And whereas they've yet to realize that college degrees are worthless, you never hire liberal arts graduates, MBA means jack shit, you could save billions on office expenses by letting your employees telecommute, it seems after only 40 years of HR Ditzes, they're finally coming to realize how worthless, if not damaging, these people are. I personally could not care less about the plight of these HR Ditzes. They prove nothing more than a huge impediment to the labor force, the advancement of the economy, and the advancements of millions of people's careers. They're predominantly spoiled, rotten brats from the suburbs, given undeserved and uncalled for power which they abused and went power tripping with. And while I certainly know and appreciate some real HR professionals, benefits and compensation and employment law are real fields, the extinction of Barbie the know-it-all HR Ditz and the idiot employers that use them will not be mourned. But don't worry, my beloved 20-something math-impaired HR Ditzes, all is not lost. For with your worthless liberal arts degree or human resources degree, you can go into the new and burgeoning field of corporate social responsibility. An entire field void of reason, hard work, math, ethics, or purpose. You can still play make-believe businesswoman without any of that nasty hard stuff like accounting, IT, engineering, or other stuff that makes the world go around. Plus, you'll have the benefit of lording your smug superiority over others just like you did in HR. Just, don't ever claim to have a real job to those of us that do.